You're listening to ESOPOD, the Foliance ESOP podcast. All right. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining me on ESOPOD, the Foliance ESOP podcast. My name is Sean Hoy, and today I'm joined by Bailey Cichon. Bailey is the social video producer at the Gazette. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Sean. How are you?
Good. So how long have you been with the company?
So if I count my internship, I would say 3.5 years, but full-time with the Gazette for 3 years.
Okay. And it looks like your role, you probably wear a lot of hats, similar to an IT person. Could you describe what does social video producer do and what all is involved in your job?
Yeah, so social video producer was a position that didn't exist until I came to the Gazette, which was really cool. I've helped shape the role, and every year it looks a little bit different. I think the percentage of video in my workload has gotten smaller and smaller as other tasks have been added. We have a really small but mighty digital team, so everybody on my team does a variety of things. But I would say my position's a hybrid of a digital editor and a reporter. So on the digital editor side, I manage social media accounts, I optimize our website. I also keep track of data analytics, produce the award-winning On Iowa Politics podcast, and also produce videos. And then on the reporting side, I think folks would most likely recognize my byline from Curious Iowa, which is a series that we started back in May of 2023. So every Monday, we answer a reader's question about our state, how it works, and about its culture. And that's been really cool because I'm not originally from Iowa, so I get to learn about our state's history pretty regularly.
Great. I've seen a few of those, and I was in the last
Iowa Ideas.
Yeah, Iowa Ideas, and I thought that was really cool. And even living here my whole life, I didn't know a lot of that information. So you said you started here as an intern. What's your background? Where were you before the Gazette?
Yeah, so I interned before my last semester at the University of Iowa. So prior to that, I had worked for the University of Iowa's social media team. I'd done an internship with Love Stories TV, doing some of the grunt work. They're essentially YouTube, but for wedding videos, and it's kind of a wedding planning tool. I had experience in the wedding industry in high school. I interned with the Law and Crime Network, so doing some trial coverage and social video work for them. And then I also worked at my student TV station.
All right. So you said you have the podcast that you run. How did that get started, and how has it gone? How has it changed since you have started here?
Yeah, so the On Iowa Politics podcast predates me. It's been going on for, I just looked at our anniversary numbers because we missed a big one. I want to say over 10 years. I don't remember the exact number. But I've only been producing it for the last year. And what it is it's gathering our Lee and Gazette Des Moines Bureau. So we have a content sharing agreement with Lee Enterprises. So think Quad City Times, Sioux City Journal, etc. And then we also have our folks here at the Gazette. And they all come together on a podcast every week to discuss the week in Iowa politics. It's hosted by our Des Moines Bureau Chief, Aaron Murphy, who does a really great job of, keeping the podcast moving. It's like 40 minutes every week. And you just get to hear about the latest in Iowa, like local news for politics. We get a lot of state coverage, especially right now with the legislature going on. It's really helpful to have people explain it to you kind of in real time. And then if there's some national stories that would have local interest, they also talk about that. So there's like 3 to 6 people on the show every week. And my job is to just make sure that I clean up the files. I make sure that it gets up online, that sort of thing.
Okay, great. So you do a lot of the back end processing and admin type stuff. Yeah, I definitely do some of that for this. I had a question about Curious Iowa. How did that develop? And has that seen a lot of success, a lot of interest from the community?
Sure. So we are not the first paper to have a Curious project. It actually started with a radio station in Chicago. And another one that I admire is Curious Minnesota by the Star Tribune. But our managing editor, Sarah Baranowski, Sarah Conrad Baranowski, had the idea when she came into the position a couple of years ago. And this was something that she really wanted to get started. And I kind of volunteered and said, hey, I can be the reporter to kind of get this off the ground. So I've written a majority of these stories for the last couple of years. And our readers are not shy about telling us what they want to know. So there's a little form that they can fill out and submit a question. We keep track of all of those questions. We get a couple hundred every year. And then we just go through. And if there's one that I can answer in an email, it's not going to be a long enough story to put in print, I'll go ahead and do that. But for the most part, it's me kind of picking what is the what topic could either be turned quickly or what needs a little bit more time. And I try to plan a couple weeks ahead. So we have like the next 3 weeks planned going into February. We're sitting talking here at the end of January. It's been extremely popular. It's really interesting to see which stories take off page view wise. Of course, like I look at our data analytics every day. But like the biggest stories of last year were, why does Iowa have a city west of the Missouri River? So talking about Carter Lake, Iowa. That was really interesting. I had found somebody who wrote his master's thesis on the topic, and it was something that he was interested in since he was a child. So he was like the perfect person to talk to. I also did one about barn quilts. So especially when you're in rural Iowa, you see these quilt blocks on the sides of barns and sheds. I talked about how that got started. It's one of the largest grassroots art movements in the country. And Washington County, Iowa is really well known for their barn quilts. So I did a really cool, audio story and just Curious Iowa package with our photographer, Savannah Blake, on that. So it's really cool. The very first Curious Iowa that we did was about sewer lines and how cities clean them. And that's one of my favorite ones I've done.
Awesome. Yeah, I was just going to ask, are there any that really stick out, or things that you didn't expect to see come through as a question?
I think in this job you kind of expect the unexpected. Nothing really surprises me anymore. But it's always interesting to take like a very basic question and realize there's so much more to it. Like this past week, I answered a question about what county health departments do. This is not something that I've personally written about as a journalist. And holy man, they do a lot of different things. And it was probably the longest Curious Iowa I've written. And I had to kind of cut it off at 60 inches. Usually those stories are about 40.
Well, okay. And like you said, there's some that you can just answer via email. Are people just submitting like, hey, when's trash pickup? Or
an example of that, somebody asked about like the nuisance policy for nuisance yards. So you have a neighbor who's not mowing their lawn. So I just looked up the information on the city's website, and they tell us when they submit a question what city they're from. So that helps me also kind of localize their answer.
And that's really all across Iowa.
We've gotten questions from outside of the state too.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I didn't realize that was outside of Iowa, so I'll have to look into some of those other ones. All right, so you have on here that you do some public speaking at schools. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, it's one of those like kind of informal things that I do. I have a good relationship with the Workplace Learning Connection at Kirkwood. So they invite me out to speak to middle school students at their career speaker days. Just on Monday, we had a high school student come in for a job shadow. And then a couple weeks ago, just randomly, I know somebody who teaches in Kosovo. So I was speaking to high school and college students out there, along with a local journalist, and it was really funny to see how similar our roles are, even, across an ocean. It shouldn't surprise me, but it did. So it's really great to be able to inspire students about different career opportunities. Even if they don't end up being a journalist, at least they have a better idea of what journalism is like in the digital age.
What kind of things do you tell them that would encourage them to look into that kind of a job?
I show them my work because I think that is the most powerful thing, especially the really fun videos. I've done a lot of crazy videos we did a series on endangered species in Iowa, which I think is really cool. Maybe the kids don't think is cool. But there's a video with bats. And I was very nervous actually to do that video because I don't like bats. And I was nervous to film in the dark. It all worked out okay. I talk about that and being facing your fears, that sort of thing, and pushing yourself to do things that are uncomfortable to grow as a person. What else do I talk about? Talk about like the things that you need. So you need to be confident. You need to be creative. And I asked them like, how many of you would consider yourself to be creative, curious, confident? And then they realized that it's really not that far off to end up writing for a newspaper or being a TV reporter or that sort of thing.
Great. Yeah, that sounds like a really cool opportunity. And I imagine you get in front of a lot of kids doing that.
Yeah, I mean, it's always funny to see how the kids react, especially like the 6th grade classrooms. I like talking to the older students. I did a lot of recruiting when I was at Iowa for the School of Journalism. So I'm really used to like trying to sell the degree program and be like, here's all the things I did. And this is all the benefits of like going to the school, and then trying to talk to kids and be like, this is really fun because you're not sitting in an office all day, every day. Even though they're so used to being in school every day, it's kind of hard to communicate the diversity that you see on the job.
Yeah, no, I think jobs are a very abstract concept for a lot of kids, especially
Absolutely.
6th grade.
I had one student write me a thank you note, and he said, I really want to be a Taekwondo instructor, but journalism is a close second.
It's a backup.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess also just along with that, showing your work for that is I'm just thinking of my kids, like they don't know what I do unless they come and sit with me and watch and see me interacting with people and doing my job on a day-to-day basis.
Well, it's hard too with those job shadows because, I mean, I usually take them for a tour of our office. They sit in on our morning news meetings. So that's when the editors check in with reporters and see what's going to come in for the paper that day. And it's so hard without like taking them on a story to really show the process. I can have them sit down and talk with various people in the newsroom and ask, what is it like to be a sports reporter? What is it like to be a photojournalist? But unless they're actually doing it themselves, I think it's hard for them to grasp exactly what this job is.
Yeah, I think that's probably true of many people, honestly. Okay, so I swear we're going to get some sort of a Foliance band or something going, because you are another person that has some musical talent, it looks like.
Yeah.
You play the piano, and how long have you been doing that?
I've been playing piano since I was 5, so we're going on 20 years. That's crazy. I also play alto saxophone. I love soprano saxophone, but I don't own one. And when I first came to Cedar Rapids, I did play in the Kirkwood band for a semester. I thought it would be a really great way to get to know the community. Decided that piano was more my thing, and I'm going to be giving piano lessons starting in a couple of weeks. So that's like a cool side project. Teaching for the first time is like extremely nerve-wracking. I've been teaching my partner at home, so that's been helping me prepare.
Looks like you also do some juggling on the side.
I do.
Is that something you've done your whole life as well?
No, it actually starts with the Gazette. So back in 2022, the International Jugglers Association held their annual festival in Cedar Rapids. And when I caught wind of this from a colleague, I thought that would be a great video opportunity. So I reached out to the festival director, and they gave me access to basically anything I wanted. They were there for a week, 600 people, all coming together to juggle. I mean, that's incredible. That doesn't happen every day. And I had planned a couple of videos. They were doing a water scuggling show, so water skiing and juggling on the Cedar River. So I did a video about that. I did another video that was like, hey, this is why you see people on unicycles downtown and juggling in Green Square Park. And then I had also planned to do one talking with professional circus artists about what people should know about their job and what misconceptions are out there, because I had the idea going in that there's probably a lot of misconceptions about juggling and clowning and all those things. But it ended up being a really busy week, and I just couldn't get that last video done. So I went to my boss and I was like, hey, when are we ever going to be able to talk to professional circus artists again? Can I take a little bit of time? I know the timeliness aspect, we always think about like the different news values in our stories, and timeliness is a big one. The timeliness aspect's gone, but can I still do the story? And he said, sure. So I took my time with it. I ended up producing this 42-minute video called Life in the Circus Arts. I submitted it to a couple of film festivals, and when I got through the film festivals, I wasn't done talking about the jugglers. I was like, these people are so cool. This community is so cool. So I ended up reaching out to the festival director, and I was like, hey, I really believe in what you guys are doing. Here are my skills. How can I help you? And for the last couple of years, I've been volunteering as a videographer at their festivals. And then I started a juggling podcast. I got convinced by some friends to do that. And I was just at a juggling festival in Madison, Wisconsin, a weekend ago, 2 weekends ago. I'm going to another one at the end of February. It's such a healthy community to be a part of. And it's just fun.
I was going to ask, what did you latch onto about that community?
Everybody's really nice. Everybody's really encouraging. And you don't have to be a good juggler. They just want you to know how to juggle. They want to teach you. And I had gone to a couple of shows after. So I had done all the work, and I hadn't really planned to go on go to any of the shows. I decided to go to 2 of them at the Paramount. They had their world championships, which was insane. Seeing stuff that I didn't know the words to describe what it was at the time. And then I went to their final show that week, and just feeling all the emotions in that room of the week has come to an end, and I don't get to hang out with 600 of my best friends until next year. I don't know, it struck a chord in me. And also I think that in our lives, play becomes something that we don't really do a lot of as an adult. And to see people in their 60s, people in their 80s having fun and playing with toys, it was just a really cool environment to be in.
That's great. So how many balls can you juggle, or what did you get up to?
So I'm not a numbers juggler.
Okay.
I'm at 3 for everything. But I can juggle balls, clubs, and rings. And I got rings for Christmas. And I think that is my favorite prop to juggle.
Wow, I don't know if I've ever seen someone juggle rings before.
They hurt. I have a big bruise on my hand from them.
Oh, ouch. So piano and juggling, are these things that you still do on a frequent basis? I know you said you're doing piano lessons, but do you still get to get out there and actually perform?
I haven't performed in probably since high school, but I play every day. I got an acoustic piano for Christmas. Santa brought me a very nice gift. And having that instead of a digital piano, you see it in your house, you just want to play it any chance you get.
Awesome. Yeah, my wife plays, and one of my daughters is doing piano lessons through school. So it's very nice to have music in the house.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's much different when you can feel it versus just playing Spotify or whatever on a speaker. All right. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
I don't think so. Go ESOPOD. Woohoo.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, thank you very much for joining me.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks for listening to ESOPOD. If you want to get in touch, send me an email at esopod@foliance.com.